Okay, Baruch Hashem, we're holding the Torahs of Simcha, and there were two main ideas I've been thinking about this week. One of them I had the great pleasure of speaking to Tzvi Cheshem. Every single Leil Shabbos, I have the great honor of davening in Or Avram, in Breslov. Tremendous Simcha, tremendous minyan. And right beside me, Rav Tzvi Cheshem sits. Rav Tzvi is considered one of the greatest Breslover Chassidim of the generation. When I was in the Mir many years ago, so people said he was like the Sholem Meshiv of the whole Mir. You know, you have like a Sholem Meshiv, like Rav Neufeld Shir, like Rav Hirsch Mish. It's like a Sholem Meshiv. They like answers questions for 10 guys when the Rebbe's not there. So Rav Tzvi is like the Sholem Meshiv for 10,000. And his Seder was that he'd walk up to the front of the yeshiva, and as soon as he'd get to the front of the yeshiva, so people would just attack, start asking him all sorts of shilas. That would take an hour, and then he'd walk to the steps going into the base medrash. But he wouldn't get up the steps, he would just get to the steps, and that was another hour. And then he got up the steps to the base medrash, that was another hour. And then outside the base medrash, there was a lot of people that was outside the base medrash. And after 4 hours, so it was already the end of Seder. So his whole Seder was just trying to get to the base medrash. People just hacking him and learning and shas, everything. And he would give Likutei Maran shiurim, like in Bein Astarim, in the Breslov headquarters, where Nachman's chair is, the headquarters. And it was basically just like a chavrusa shaft that he had with somebody else, but then 100 other people would be listening in to that chavrusa shaft. And all of Shas is on his fingertips. Gemara, Rashi, Tosfos, everything. Gematria is you never heard, coming out of outer space. So for a couple weeks I've been dealing with this question that we say in Chav David, V'lo osid, and in the future, tisgadla simcha me'oid. In the future, the simcha is going to be so great. And after I give you his answer, I want to unpack this together. The simcha is going to be so great. Also, that Kodesh Baruch Hu liyos roish chayil tzadikim lasid lavoi. There's going to be a circle. Hashem is going to be in the middle. But if the simcha is going to be so great, then it can't just be that the circle is the regular circle and the Yogan Vanocha is on the side. It has to be the Maili Yisera, like we said, which is you're pulling the Yogan Vanocha from the outside into the circle. So what's the Yogan Vanocha in Yemaisa Mashiach? If the whole thing of the greatest level of simcha, as we said, when you pull guys in from the side, there's a nice simcha where at least you're dancing, and then you got a couple guys on the side. But just dance. Okay, but then there's some power struggle. The dancers and the non-dancers. But even greater than that is what? Chaytfin, pull them in. Convert the depression into simcha. So, Lasid Lavai, we just said when Mashiach comes, it's going to be an amazing level of simcha. So what's going to be what are we pulling in from the side? What stuff is still on the side? What's still there that we need to pull in? After Mashiach comes, didn't we do it? Why is there going to be challenges? What are we pulling in? So I said this to Reb Tzvi on Leil Shabbos, right after davening. He sits right beside me. Usually other people run in to ask him shilas, but for some reason this week I was able to coordinate a precision strike right away. I just went to Reb Tzvi and I asked this question. I said, what's going to be the Yogan Vanocha when Mashiach comes? And he said to me, he smiled, he said, the nations of the world.
Wow, that was a straight answer.
Straight answer, quick. The nations of the world. We're going to be pulling the nations of the world into the circle also. And that's going to be a very great level of simcha. LeBron's coming in, Joe Rogan's coming in, the Gansa Oilam's coming in, everyone's coming in. It's going to be a very high level of simcha then. So what does that feel to you? We're talking about what Mashiach, the whole time Mashiach is going to look like. We're going to be a circle. We're going to be pulling in. Yeah.
Does that mean that people are going to become Jewish?
At a certain point, there's not going to be any more converts. However, you don't have to be Jewish to be close to God. The Jewish people have a greater responsibility. We have 613 mitzvahs, and the other nations have 7. And we celebrate humanity. The first thing that struck me with this is that it's not just a Jewish thing. This is going to be for humanity. Bless you.
Amen.
This is going to be to bring humanity into a place of goodness, into a place of happiness. We want to return and bring, it's a gift to humanity. We want to help humanity have an elevated existence, to bring them into this circle, this happiness, this deep meaning. That also, like, what's going on in the circle? Everyone's pointing, Zeh Hashem kivinu loi, nagila v'nismecha boi. This is my God. There's only one God. I remember I had like a thing when I was growing up. It might have been like 11 or 12 or like something around there. Where I knew about like world religions and, and I knew about God. And then I remember I started speaking to different members of the human tribe. I remember they started talking about God also. And I think it was when I started to really listen to Bob Marley that it got me. For some reason he had something that like did something to me. And I had this like epiphany. It's all the same God. It's all the same God. That was like a very big breakthrough for me as a child. I remember that. It's all the same God. There's only one. So Allah said lovely that we're going to be bringing everybody in to the relationship with Hashem. That's a very moving thing to me. Anything else touch people by this idea?
I have a question. If the role of the Jewish people is to help awaken other people to the idea of Hashem, then once everybody realizes that there's Hashem, what's the point of the Jewish people?
Meaning, a relationship with Hashem is not a static experience. It's endless. We're talking about getting close to the infinity. How long is that going to take? Just do a mathematical equation. Infinity. So our mission is going to be to help humanity get closer and closer and closer and closer for eternity. Yeah, Yossel?
What was the specific Bob Marley song that helped you come to this revelation?
I think it was a smattering of many. One Love was like very...
It's a very Mashiach song, like one love,
Let's
one heart,
get together. And, even though it's more than that, Bob, it's more. It's not just, if we just get together, it's all going to be okay. Like, there are rules, of... It's not just if we...
In the Tower of Babel, they all got together.
Exactly, and it wasn't all right.
No.
So, yes, exactly, that's the point, is that the Tower of Babylon was absolute unity, but it was a unity to fight God. So it's not just getting together, but Bob was like, he began a process for me. He began this journey for me of opening stuff up, you know what I'm saying? Interesting person. Yeah.
I heard an idea last night that when Mashiach comes, all the beauty of the whole world is going to come to Israel.
Yes.
Like that beauty of the Alps or the forests.
Yes. It says that Eretz Yisrael is the Eretz Tzvi. It's called the land of the deer. So one of the things that they explain about a deer, and specifically an animal, but a deer has a certain element to it, is that if you take off the skin, let's say you were to shecht an animal and you take off the skin, you want to make a coat or something. So the size of the hide could not be put back onto the animal. It shrinks, it gets smaller. When the animal's alive, the hide is larger. When the animal has died, the hide shrinks. So to speak, when the land is dead, if you will, and we're not here keeping Torah and mitzvahs, or the majority of the Jews are not here, the land is not fully alive yet.
We need to be iron like a lion in Zion. Bob Marley would say.
Oh. And if we come home and we start acting the way we're supposed to in the palace of the king, then the land will become alive once again, and then the hide will stretch. The land will become larger, spiritually speaking. There'll be space. We'll see great beauty sprout forth in this land. The land will accommodate its inhabitants like a hide that's stretching. So people think like, how are we going to fit everybody here? It's the land of the deer. The hide will grow, and we're going to see a tremendous blessing and abundance here. And all the prophecies of Tanakh, of the prophets, speak about Yemaisa Mashiach. They're not talking about the world to come. That the lion and the lamb will dwell together, and that the mountains will burst forth springs and pomegranates and grapevines. And look at the Mesiras Nefesh, Aaron Avital. Thank you so much. Wow. We respect you. Thank you. So this land is like, it's waiting to burst forth with all of its bounty. So you guys are in the right place.
Just my last comment on Bob Marley. He even had this one song called Zion Train about like how like everything's directed and oriented towards Zion in terms of like he was like putting his art, his beauty like to whatever.
He davened to Tzion, to Hara Maria?
Well, he had this song called Zion Train. It's all about coming back to Zion and like going to Zion, how it's all going on the Zion train.
That's where we're all going. That's the middle of the circle. That's the middle of the circle, is that we're pulling minachutz, we're pulling in to the center. We're pulling in, directing to the center point. Everybody knows all eyes are always on Yerushalayim. The eyes of the world are centered, literally where we're sitting. The eyes of the world are centered here. And I'm from the 6th. I would like to think the whole world revolves around Toronto, but it revolves around Yerushalayim. The world is looking at Jerusalem, and it has been for thousands of years. This is where we're all going to come back to Tzion, to Zion. But we're going to come back. We're only worthy to come back if we come back as righteous human beings, as noble human beings. If we come back without Torah, that's a big problem. Because that's a big chutzpah to go into the palace of the king and be, God forbid, spitting on the king himself. It's more severe when you're in front of the king. So this is like being in the palace of the king. So we have a higher level of responsibility here. So this is what I think this is what's touching me, is that when Tzvi said that the nations of the world are going to come into the circle, that's the Yogan Va'anocha that's going to come in. That we're all, and there's going to be more layers of pulling in and bringing humanity into the circle. That's a very beautiful image to me also. It's just we're all going to be in this giant circle together. But the circle is not about, me per se. It's about that we're all looking towards the center. And we can all say, this is my God. So that was the one thing that was on my mind for a long time, but Tzvi opened up the sugya for me. Another thing that was on my mind is that, have you guys not noticed that through these entire Torahs, we've been speaking about you have to be besimcha, and it's natural that when you're besimcha, that the Yogan Va'anocha is going to be oimdim min atzad, it's going to stay by the side. But still, it's good to be besimcha. Mitzvah gedol liyas besimcha tamid, lisgaber laharchik ha'atzos v'amarshchar b'kol koicha, do whatever you can to separate that from you. Ma'ili yisera is that you can go and you could touch that and you could pull it in. But it's like you running after this thing. Have you not noticed that the whole psychology here, I wonder what Jung and Freud will say about all this, is non-stop talking about there's me and then there's this other thing called depression. We're talking about it as like two separate entities. And I think for many people in the mental health world, what happens to them is they start to think that I am my depression, or it's me. Reb Nachman is like making a very clear slicing that there's a you, and then there's something separate called the depression. You can almost like talk to it, you know what I'm saying? Like you go in the circle, and it's going to stand on the side. And like as you're going around the circle, you like look at it. He looks back at you. But who's the he looking at you? It's not me. I'm the guy in the circle. Who is that guy?
This is modern psychotherapy.
Is this how they go in modern psychotherapy?
What you
Yeah,
would
this is
say.
like IFS.
IFS?
Yeah.
Is that you externalize the problem? Okay? So Reb Nachman, what did he say? He preceded my entire psychology.
Yeah, you said that Rabbi Dover, the Maggid of Mezrich, anticipated his entire psychology.
So you see Reb Nachman's anticipating all IFS.
So I think it's got inner family
Isolation of
system.
society.
No, it's an inner family system. Like it separates people say like, oh, there's a 6-year-old me that wants attention. They're like separating the parts. It's like external, like they're not me. They're different parts of me. And then you can like talk to them and this and that. And
It's a very powerful thing is that all of a sudden my anxiety, it's not me. And by the way, one of the most Chassidish Gemaras, and it's a funny thing to say, but I'll tell you why it's a Chassidish Gemara, because the Chassidim love this Gemara. It fits, it's so much in line with the entire Teres of Baal Shem, is that the Gemara in Soita says, Ein Adam Choite, Ela Shenichnas Boy Ruach Shtus. A person does not do an Avera unless a spirit of craziness overcomes him. Think about that Gemara for a second. A person does not do an Avera, there's the person, and then the Avera only happens because something like insane came into him and convinced him. It's like, remember that guy Jafar from Aladdin? Who's like whispering like, Jafar. He's like whispering like, do this evil thing, do this evil thing. It's mamish that I don't do Averas. My soul is good, is pure, is lebedik, is in the circle, is happy. Who I am is fully tapped in to goodness, to happiness, to love, to compassion. So then why do I do Averas? Because I let my guard down and this spirit of craziness came into me.
That could just be an excuse. Anyone can see that.
You're not allowed to let the spirit come in. You got to block it.
Yeah, but let's say it happens often. You just say that all the time.
You're not allowed to. Hashem says you're not allowed to let it take over you.
Like every Mesilah Yesharim, it's like in Amar to Mekiyud. It's saying you have to learn how to get rid of you want to finish. Just push it down. It shouldn't even be a thing.
So do your best, for sure. Our whole life is that you do things to protect it, that ruach shtus doesn't come into you. You don't do things that give it a home, that give it a place inside of you. There's certain things and activities that like draw in the ruach shtus. Like, you have a home here, You're welcome here, the ruach shtus. You got to stay away from shtus, shtuyot. The ruach shtus likes to hang out with shtusin. Yeah.
So I once heard this mashal a while ago about how your soul's kind of like a window, and every single time evil spirits or depressions come in, it makes your window a lot foggier and dirtier, like a dirty window, and you gotta cleanse it off, pink flow and all that. But does that kind of not go with this idea because of the sense that your depression and just bad things are a separate part of you?
That would be like the soul being, let's call it a diamond, but it's a diamond that's beautiful, that intrinsically is gorgeous. The ruach shtus is that all of that negativity that comes in starts covering over, makes these layers of schmutz on the diamond. What happens then is that I don't identify myself as this beautiful soul anymore. I see myself as this kind of dirty. And that's where the mikvah, that's where the polishing of the diamond. I'll tell you, before Pesach, and I'm just reminding myself as I'm talking, before Pesach, I go and get my wife's diamonds cleaned for Pesach. And you don't get a regular, you don't just take like a wipey to clean them. You go back to the place you bought them, they put them in the diamond machine, so I looked at the ring, I was like, it's pretty clean. She's like, take it. So I took it to, every year I go to take it to the place. So the first year I took it, I was like, hey, how much nicer is it going to get? So the guy puts it in the machine, it's like, zzzz, the thing comes out. As the sun was shining into the store, it hit the diamond, it was like, doo, 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 doo. I was like, I didn't even realize even a slight amount of like dirt, schmutz on the diamond already dulled the vibe of the diamond. Once you really get it polished up nice. So I'm saying the tzaddikim that are mamish polished, they're looking fresh. Oh, they glow. That's why many tzaddikim, they like to go to the mikveh all the time. There were certain tzaddikim in the States, they literally just lived in a mikveh. They went from the mikveh to shul and back, and they're basically underwater most of the day. There were certain people, without getting into that, don't do that at home. Mikveh's good, but not that much. For you guys, I think, personally, you can disagree with me. And there's such a thing, though, of just constant polishing, is that the shtus of the world is thick. And as we get to the end of days, the final few moments before Mashiach, when they have a candle, right before the candle goes out, what does it do? It goes nuts. So the Yetzer Hara is also like that. Right before it's going to meet its end, it starts going. It's like a guy in an MMA thing. You put the guy on the ropes. If he thinks he's on the ropes, he goes crazy. He'll go nuts. So the Yetzer Hara knows that his end is near. So he's giving it every last bit. You have to be very, very careful and on guard nowadays that the diamond should remain pure. The diamond should stay fresh. And yet, you protect yourself from the Rosh Tus. But I think this whole Torah keeps separating the two. We're talking to it, running after it. Who's the me that's running after what? I'm not running after myself, I'm running after something external. Which is such a powerful psychology, is that when you have a challenge, the first thing to realize, it's not me. Yossel?
So you were asking before, as far as what you would think about all of this, and I'm no Bucky and Jung, but what I would say is he's got this concept of the shadow, and this idea of shadow work, and the idea reminds me of, I guess, what we're talking about as far as this depressed person who's out on the side. Jung in this, process of individuation is all about integrating all these different parts into yourself and
sound like it bringing into the circle.
Yeah, bringing exactly. So we're working the shadow work is
Well, it sounds like the Maila Yasera. The Maila Yasera Lisametz Lir Doif Achar Marshchar Davka is to go and incorporate those parts.
Yeah.
But not incorporate those parts. Sometimes people are some of these movies that they put out nowadays, where they start making you feel bad for a serial killer. He was bullied, he's bipolar. You start I relate to him, some pedophile or something. It's oh. And the movies are so subliminal, diabolical, he's just expressing who he is, You get what I'm saying? This was already happening back in the day. It's ramped up over the last, it's just express this. No, there's certain things that are averas, and we don't do averas. That's not called expressing. If you could elevate that thing, you could find a way that very thing that you thought was your biggest challenge can become your biggest strength. That's what it means to bring it into the circle. Bring it into the circle, but elevate it. Not just express, sometimes in these, I think nowadays is a big thing, and it pains me because the Torah is not into it. If you don't curse, people think that you're not being real. You know what I'm saying? So all the popular guys are just cursing all day long. You can barely listen to somebody that it's such their mouths are so sloppy and dirty. It's just pure cursing. And they'll say, no, that's I'm just expressing who I am. Just because you have to speak dirty, that's who you are. That's really who you are in your essence. The Torah is careful, it doesn't have any dirty words. The Torah is so profound when it comes to having clean language. And that through clean language that you build a beautiful world through that. It's like externalizing it. I don't have to curse. I'm a holy, beautiful soul, and I'm able to live an elevated life. Why do I have to swear and curse? It's one of the first things that people notice when they come to yeshiva, is that you come to an environment and nobody is cursing. And all of a sudden, like, you'll hear one guy say something like, and you'll be like, ooh, it's like a dagger, like, oh, that hurt, bro. Like, that's not nice. You become sensitized to it, like, oh, that's not so clean. The Rosh Yeshiva would curse. Rabbi Chimair, you could imagine such a thing? It's like, oh, it's so lowly. You got to elevate your life. So these are the two main points I've been thinking about this week. Is the first one of bringing into the circle the nations of the world. And the second one is the whole way that Rabbi Nachman is separating the me and then all the depressive things and the challenges, that it's completely separate from me. Yeah.
A couple of thoughts I've been having is...
By the way, this is learning Rabbi Nachman, that you have thoughts. That you have thoughts and there's things that are coursing through your mind throughout the week.
Yeah.
Then Rabbi Nachman is becoming yours, that it's now you have an independent experience with Rabbi Nachman. So please, Dania.
So I was making a connection between our idea of bringing the circle, and then Rabbi Akiva Tatz talks about the idea of your circle, and the things that are in your circle, your, whatever, you once you define who you are, like your identity, your sense of self, then you can identify the things that belong in your circle. The character traits that you have, the things that you care about, the work that you do, and then therefore you shouldn't be jealous when looking at somebody else's circle, because your unique circle is your gift from Hashem. Why would you be jealous of somebody else's gift? It's not meant for you. And so I combine that with like the thoughts of when I think about my circle, what am I bringing into my circle? Because if I only just discovered, I went through a whole process before coming here of like figuring out who I am. If I've only figured out who I am in like a couple of months before coming here in a more integrated, complete way, now I have like the first time freedom to decide whose hands am I grabbing? Am I grabbing the hand of contentment, or am I grabbing the hand of growth? Am I grabbing the hand of spiritual development? Am I grabbing the career progression rat race? And when I think about our example, we could have 100 people outside the circle. If we bring someone in that is going to be sluggish into the circle, not really participatory, they're there, but they're not enjoying, they're not fully in it. And even if we try and pull, they didn't want to be there. They're there because we brought them in, but they're not fully there. And so even when we bring people into our circles, when we choose the things that we want to take into our lives, we should bring people into our circles that are, they're not really fully invested into the circle. And so I've been going through this process of what am I bringing into my life that is fully invested in creating this beautiful circle.
That's very beautiful. Rabbi Nachman seems to take us to the next step, even after that. After I brought everything good, I'm in the circle, I'm dancing. There's naturally going to be some things that stay on the outside, that don't want to come in, that are not even so happy that I'm so happy. Can I even bring those things in also? Can I even bring my jealousy into the circle? Can I even bring my other stuff into the circle. Even if that guy is schleppy in the circle,
Better to be the schleppy guy in the circle than the guy on the
you got to find a way. Does the guy on the outside, could we know better than the guy on the outside who's depressed? I'm not even saying for sure. I'm saying the guy that's depressed, he thinks he is happy. He doesn't want to be depressed outside the circle. And probably if you really have a straight conversation with that depressed guy, he's like, after all, like, no, I'm happy, like, you know, I'm good, like, I just want to stay in my bed and just, like, do nothing. But let's say you could really take the guy out, wine and dine him, get him some wagyu, have some nice, you know, oraganus hurkanus, some yatir wine, something nice, mamish, some chocolate, you know, lava cake at the end, some vanilla ice cream. And after all that, the guy's like, and you say to him, you know, Rabbi, I noticed that, like, you spend a lot of time just, like, being depressed. Tell me, do you really like that?
Yeah.
Do you really feel, like, deep content and happiness? Being anxious? Do you feel like you've activated who you are? So I think if he's honest, and you could really get him to a place of real conversation, he'll say, no, I don't want to be such a depressed person. I don't like that. I don't feel good. So when we're telling him that come into the circle, that's where you're going to find happiness. We're saying that we do see things more clearly than that depressed guy. Come in. There's a place of hope here. There's something better here. We got to find a way to schlep him in. Bal korchai machrichem oisei. You have to mamish pull him in. Charlie.
So, of course, I hear the idea of like bringing the best things into your circle and like try to make your circle as best as possible. But didn't we also mention pretty sure at the beginning of this that you're supposed to embrace all the bad things in your circle and like bring that into the circle and like kind of like switch that bad thing into a good thing?
Yeah,
rather than just like only bringing good things.
Yeah.
Like even your negative aspects, like make those positive.
Yeah, that's the higher level, is I could even bring all the low parts into the circle. But the way that I look at it is I see that I've gone through this. This was a part of my life that I went through. This is giving me strength. You know, there's things that happen to a person. When we go through challenges, if you really could see that those challenges are here to make you big, to make you great, and you could that's called pulling it into the circle. This was all from Hashem. So then those very things become a source of great simcha. You got to pull it into the circle. The first step, though, is mitzvah gedolos b'simcha tamid. You just got to get out of bed. Once you're moving, all these things stand on the side. The higher levels, you got to pull those things in also. All those darker parts, all those traumatic things. And that's going to be a process of going through those things and saying all the, family stuff that I had growing up. That was all part of my journey. And I had a time in my life, I was tree planting. It's like a real classic Canadian hippie thing to do, is that we went out west.
I was supposed to ask.
Yeah. They have Ontario ones, but it was a BC one.
Yeah.
That's like the real, the high ballers go.
Yeah.
So we went out west, and I was tree planting. Now I thought I was like this 19-year-old, hot shot, fit tree planting guy. But I didn't have like the whole Masorah how to do it properly. So the guys who really knew, they shaved down the shovel. It's like, I had like this big shovel, it was heavy. I was like, I'll conquer the world. And you got paid per tree. And you'd have these big sacks. You'd put hundreds of trees in, like these little saplings. And you'd go, and it was just, take a step, plant your tree. And you take another step, plant the tree. Another step, plant the tree. And people were making saying, if you really knew what you were doing, you can make like $500 a day just planting, just tons of trees. And you had a foreman coming behind you to make sure everything was planted properly, but you could really make. And you slept in these hippie tents, and they serve you granola, what I'm saying, like vegan style, soy patties and stuff, like classic. And At a certain point in the middle of the summer, I hurt my hands. It's like a very normal thing, like a bad tendonitis. And for some reason, it got so bad that my hands locked up. It was like a very traumatic time in my life. Now, in Kabbalah, your hands are very identified with like your interface with the world. You shake a person's hand, it's how you do things, it's how the you meets the world. So I couldn't even shake hands. It was like my hands were they were like clenched up. It was a very emotionally hard time for me. I ended up taking a year off college to just like figure things out. I really, my whole arms were I was going to doctors and sports medicines people, and maybe it was like some type of autoimmune thing going on, but definitely the psychology was like getting into it and feeding into it. It was a very difficult time. Now, at the end of that, all of that led to now looking back. I was on a trajectory in life. I don't know exactly what it would have looked like, but definitely would have looked like coming to yeshiva. It was definitely not going in that direction. My whole life shifted. I ended up coming to Israel, coming to yeshiva.
Wow.
And that whole time in my life, that at the time felt like so much, like not, I was also going back, seeing all, my friends in college, and they're all getting like their degrees and stuff, and I was like in the middle of my degree, and I was like taking time, and I had this feeling of like not being good enough or inadequate, all the stuff that goes on, stuff is going on. If I learned this Torah then, I think I would have had a lot clearer perspective, that somehow that had to be put into the circle also. But I see now, embracing that part, pulling that into the circle, not only was that, it was a challenge, but it became such a part of strength. It shifted my whole course. It was such a blessing, but in disguise. And we have to start thinking, like when you're going through a challenge, if you could pull it into the circle, before you, so to speak, see the great salvation of it, if you know that it belongs in the circle, it belongs in the circle, and if everything is from God, so this must be here to give me some, and Purim, of course, does that. The whole of Purim is all the worst things became the best things. V'nehapachu, that's the avoid of Purim, is pull it into the circle. Pull it in while you're going through it. The person's going through some anxiety things, pull that in. Hashem, this has to be the best thing for me. I want to dance with my anxiety. I want to pull that into the circle. I want to dance with all my psychological static and stuff. I want to pull it into the circle. I want to have a real rikud with my anxiousness. I'm pulling it into the circle. The first step is you just have to start dancing. You got to start dancing. Even if it's standing on the side. It's like, yeah, you're dancing, but you're still an anxious, whatever. You got OCD, you got this problem, you got that problem. It's on the side. Okay? It's like waiting for you. Oh, I know when you're going to stop dancing, you're going to be back to your anxious way. No. Come on in the circle. I want to pull my anxious feelings now into the circle. I want to elevate those feelings right now. If you could do that, it's very, very powerful. Not after, I'm saying afterwards. Afterwards, I realized that was somehow a transformative thing. So now I'm dancing with the fact that I had all these hand problems. But if I could do that while I'm going through it, first I externalize it. I could, number one, be happy. There's a progress here. Mitzvah Gedolah was a simcha tamin. I'm going to be b'simcha. And then I'm going to pull it in. I'm going to pull that challenge in right now. Right now into the circle.
Our Torah and our fire, like our soul, then is in my head, based off what you said, I'm imagining us like dancing around the fire of our soul, being Torah. And that when we invite that experience as we're going through it into the circle, then we can experience the hapahu of that emotion in real time.
Yes.
Rather than
Wait until after.
Right. Well, it's very interesting.
You gotta pull. If you pull it in the moment, then you're really making moves.
Wow.
Just realized another thing is that it says that when Mashiach comes, Hashem will shecht the Yetzer Hara, and when it says specifically the word shecht, why forget the verse, but specifically the word shecht and not kill, because when you shecht something, you turn something that was not kosher into something that was kosher. So when Mashiach comes, we're going to, so to speak, shech the Yetzer Hara and bring him from the tzad into the circle and have him dancing with us. That all that thing that he was trying to always pull you out, and it was the tug of war. Like, no. You were always mistaken. Come inside, and then you're all dancing together. Now the simcha's like.
You realize that's why in the entire sequence of Ma'aseh Bereshis, where it says Toiv, Hinehi Toiv, it's Toiv. So the Medrash says Zu Yetzer Toiv. Toiv is the Yetzer Toiv. Toiv me'oid, very good. Zuhi Yetzer Hara. The Yetzer Hara is Toiv me'oid. Chazal. The Yetzer Hara is Toiv me'oid. So, sparring partner, yes. The Yetzer Hara is the thing that's allowing you the greater simcha. It's the pulling out and pull. It's the Ma'ali Yisera. He's giving you the ability to become the Bala Shleimus, to be able to come to these higher levels of simcha that you've earned it. It's Toiv Me'oid. I remember back in the day I played this game called Mario Brothers. So, Mario Brothers, who's like the top dog at the end? Bowser. So, you put in countless time into the game. Going, trying, almost. And my brother and I, we would be mechazik each other. I know, level 9 we could do this. Don't worry, you could. And then at the end, fireballs coming from everywhere. So every game has their inyan. Once you win, you beat Bowser, and all of a sudden the game, the screen becomes, it's blank. And you're like, what happens now? We beat the game. So all of a sudden you see it's blank, and then it's a light, and you're in your car, you're driving towards the palace, and all the princess and flower person, and they're all they're greeting you on the way to the palace, and you're in a tuxedo or something, you're driving with Luigi, you're weird, where are we going? All of a sudden you get into the palace, and and who greets you? Bowser himself. And he's wearing a bekisha and a strimal, a tuxedo or something, and he shakes your hand, he's shkoyach. It's mamish, and you're but aren't you that same guy that was trying to kill me? It's I just was here to make you greater.
Wow.
So to that, and tying, Mario Brothers into Rabbi Nachman, I remember when reading The Lost Princess, I was thinking about how Princess Peach, was the lost princess, and Bowser was the animal that had, or the beast that had abducted the lost princess, and how this was all a nimshal for your nefesh Bahamas or your Yetzer Hara taking control of your neshama.
They got it all from us.
So yeah, Mario Kart really is a deeper nimshal in terms of
it's all.
The castle at the end is Olam Haba.
Basically, if you look at any of the sci-fi, all these movies, all this Lord of the Rings stuff, you just open up the Zohar, it's all there. It's all, all their content. The dragon and the palace and the princess, it's all there. It's all been scripted.
Star Wars, the dark side.
That's right. The Sitra Achra.
But the Mario Brothers really stole their story from Rabbi Nachman, The Lost Princess.
It's interesting that the end of Chaf Gimel, all of a sudden the Rebbe mentions the Sitra Achra. The end of Chaf Gimel, Ki yesh yogan v'anocha, shehem ha-Sitra Achra. There's depression that is the Sitra Achra. It's interesting, Ki yesh.
Yeah, not all of it.
It's interesting. There is Yogan V'Anocha that is the Sitra Achra, but not all of it.
You said that there's Yogan V'Anocha that comes from the Nishma.
Oh, so that's what I was thinking. The Leiv Nishbar. Yeah, you have.
Sandwich. The same thing.
Let's go to Leiv Nishbar a second. The Aklal. Oh. Af shagam Leiv Nishbar hu toiv me'oid. Im kol ze hu rak be'ezeh shah. V'roi likboi lo ezeh shah b'yom l'shabra liboi l'faresh sichosa l'fonav yizboa kemuva etzleinu. Aval kol yom kulo yitzarech liyos b'simcha. Ki me'leiv nishbar be'kal yichoyim lavoi l'moshchara. Here it's interesting. It seems like Leiv Nishbar, it's not more shchara. Yosem asher yichoyim likoshel al de simchas v'shalom. Lavoi la'ezeh holiness chas v'shalom. Ki ze korav yoser lavoi mi'leiv nishbar l'mar shchara. Al ken sar she b'simcha tam rak b'sham yuchedes yeh lo leiv nishbar. It's not the Yogan Vanocha is the more shchora. It looks like there's some Yogan Vanocha, ki yesh Yogan Vanocha. Shema Sitra Achra. Remember we were saying the Anocha is like the groaning, the groans, and we said like there's sighing.
It says in the notes.
Oh yeah?
It says notes, sighing and sadness. The sighing,
There's like the giving up.
yeah.
And we remember like I think our first year we were making that chiluk between like a and like That's a big chiluk, right? They're both like an anocha, but one is like more of a one you're more upset. The other one's like a leiv nishbar, like I've done things. What's leiv nishbar? For an hour a day you should have leiv nishbar. The leiv nishbar is the stuff on the outside. Remember, we talked about that. The leiv nishbar is the yogam v'anocha. The leiv nishbar is when you can actually have this power of bringing stuff in. Is that you go and you chase that stuff. You go through it, through the hisboidus. And you're pulling things in.
Is Leiv Nishbar the same as crying for the baby Redesh, for example? Like Tikkun Chasod?
Yeah.
That would be Leiv Nishbar.
Yeah. That's why the Balatanya makes sure that we realize that Tikkun Chatzot is supposed to come at the beginning of the Chatzot, and then right after that you go into this the psukim of Tehillim that are very much simcha, and then you learn Torah. Because from the most challenging moment, you can have the greatest simcha. From the darkness comes the greatest light. That it has to be that there's that interplay between the darkness and the light, and the greatest happiness. That's because I can go out of the circle, I could bring in the Maili Yisera of pulling it in. But it's interesting that Reb Nachman goes to Sitra Achra, literally the other side. That's interesting, the other side definitely means the other side of the circle. He's outside. He's the dark side. He's the other side.
Could you explain the terms again?
Sitra Achra means the side that's the other one.
And Yagon Venocha is...
Yogan means, how do they translate it there?
Yog. The Yog.
The sadness and sighing or groaning. Now it's an interesting thing. There's almost like this Kedusha. Is there anything that's called being parv? Can you be a parv yid?
Yeah, for sure.
No.
Either you're kadosh or you're connected to the other side. Because there's Kedusha, and then there's the other side. It looks like, people say, being a yid is it all or nothing. No, don't worry. It's okay, yeah, it's true. It's true. It's not all or nothing. That when it comes to motivation, it really is. It's either you're loyal to Hashem or the other. There's really only two options. There's no sitting on a fence. It's either was this action for Hashem? There's no parav. Mila Hashem Elai. It's either you're for Hashem or you're for the other. That's a very profound thing. So really a yid has to ask themselves at any moment, and this goes for anybody, am I for Hashem? At this moment, I'm learning, I'm davening, I'm having lunch, I'm speaking to some friends. Is this a moment of being for Hashem? Is this Kedusha? Or is this giving energy to the other side? There's really only two options. So what do we see in review today? B'siyat D'Shmaya, we mentioned that the Yogan V'Anocha, in the times of Mashiach, we said the Yogan V'Anocha, Tzvi said, that the nations of the world are going to be coming into the circle. That's going to be the Maili Yisers, we're going to pull humanity into the circle of happiness. We're going to be pulling everybody in. And it looks like, because the whole circle, remember, it's we're pulling more of humanity in. Every time we're going out, we're pulling more into the circle. And that's a very profound message, is that we're here to help humanity. And then we mentioned that the whole psychology of the Torah, of separating the depression from the me, is that I can go talk to it, that's the way that we see well-being, is that I'm a neshama, and Eina Adam Chayta Ela Shenichnas By Ruach Shtus. I only do an aver because something crazy came into me. And then we went into the Torah, speaking about Yogan V'Anocha, and we spoke about Loss and Love, we spoke about the circle, and we ended with the Sitra Achra. Then what's the Sitra Achra? There's a Yesh Yogan V'Anocha, Leiv Nishbar, and the side that we want to be connected to, it's clear, is that the opposite of Sitra Achra is Simcha, is Kedusha. There's Sitra Achra and depression, that's like one thing, and then there's Kedusha and Simcha. So Simcha is Kadosh. A person who's holy is a happy guy. There's no such thing as this guy. He's like being all holy and like grumpy and like agitated because he's like learning Gemara all day. He's like like edgy. He's like,
Mysterious.
It's funny, the Rosh Yeshiva is so big. The Rosh Yeshiva said in one of our Rebbe meetings, so it's worth it just to work all those years, just to go to these Rebbe meetings. Or you can like hide under a table or something there. So he was talking about like, we have to give our Talmidim the chinuch of what Purim is supposed to look like. You're not just giving, we're talking about, we're educating, we're giving a vision to the generation about how to be real Jews. So that means not just that everyone has to be independent in their learning of Gemara and davening, we have to give them the chinuch of what it means to have a Purim. And what should a Yid look like on Purim? So he said, I said, you guys are all responsible for that, so get it done. So then he's like, I don't know. It says the Rosh, I don't know, like, sometimes you'll see these like, old time, he said Rosh Yeshivas, and it's even worse, the younger Rosh Yeshivas, that their Purim is like, they're very like, like agitated and like serious. Those are his lashonuses, agitated. And they're just like, Purim, like it's like a serious day, like we have to like make sure we daven, it's like serious. But it's a bit like edgy and agitated. He said, that's not Purim. So Purim is mamish simcha, begalui mamish. You have to be totally exploding with simcha. And that's Kadosh, that's Kedusha. Kedusha is not this grumpy situation. Kedusha is simcha. Is a high level of simcha, is holiness. So we should be Zoycha Mamish, to be happy, happy people. It says in the Zohar that Rabbi Shimon, all the time says, Rabbi Shimon Chadi. Chadi Rabbi Shimon. Chadi Rabbi Shimon. Chadi means he was a happy person. The whole Zohar is like Rabbi Shimon Chadi. Chadi Rabbi Shimon. It always talks about how Rabbi Shimon was like a happy person. What do you mean? Wasn't he like some crazy Kabbalist, like deep and like intense and like walked around like how serious like Torah is. Torah. No, Rav Shimon was happy. The Zohar makes it very clear, he's very happy. He's very leibedik, a happy person. And he had the greatest Kedusha. Kedusha and Simcha brings in all the bracha. We should be Zoycha Mamish, to be Simcha, filled with happiness, to walk around with the Asar Mini Defikin, with these 10 beats, to walk around with a hop in our step, with Bezrat Hashem, and through that all the healing will come to humanity. It happens speedily in our days. Amen ve'amen. Ayahu ashreinu matol elgeinu manayim go'alei. Ya ashreinu matol manayim go'alei. Shachris.